which I didn't notice too much on my initial sweep, but his legs were actually amputated right below the knee on both sides, probably from the seat.
Welcome to the Calm in the Chaos podcast, where we discuss untold heroic experiences and dive into the mindset of the Navy's elite rescue swimmers. Hosted by former U.S. Navy Aviation Rescue Swimmer, Mount Everest solo summiteer, and best-selling author Brian Dickinson.
Hey everyone, it's Brian Dickinson. If you're enjoying these stories, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. It helps more people find these conversations, and it keeps the mission alive. And if you want early access to new episodes and to support what we're building, consider becoming a Spotify paid subscriber. Your support means everything. Now let's jump in so others may live. So today we got Casey Clark joining the Calm in the Chaos podcast. At 5 years active as a U.S. Navy Aviation Rescue Swimmer, 2.5 in reserves, living the good life. Well, sort of ups and downs, right? So, something
Definitely.
outside of your control. But yeah, thanks for being on the podcast today.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's good listening to your show. I work a lot in my car, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm glad I found yours.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you reached out.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know you, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Hermosa Beach, California, small beach town over here in a big city in LA. Pretty much, it was a really good childhood. My parents were pretty much, I was a latchkey kid, so we had skateboards, bikes, and surfboard. I bodyboarded a lot, bodyboard all the time. Pretty much all we did was just hang out at the beach and get in a little bit of trouble sometimes, and have fun down here.
So what drives someone who's living the beach life in Hermosa Beach to go in the Navy?
Man, so here's a funny story, right? So I had no idea about going in the Navy at all. It wasn't even on my radar. But we were about a year out of high school. We weren't really doing, me and a group of my friends, we weren't doing too much for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
Not going to college. I was working at a pet food company, just whatever, but I spent most of my days just hanging out at the beach and doing the things that didn't promote you in life,
Yeah.
And my friend was the same way, and I was hanging out at his house one day, and he comes over to me and he showed me some paperwork. And he's like, "Hey, I just joined the Navy." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I just went over and signed up. I'm on the DEP program, the delayed entry program."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, yeah." He's like, "Check it out." And he showed me what he was going to do. And he found a real good recruiter that basically showed him the STAR job. And, he showed me the paperwork, all the stuff. And I was like, "Oh, man." I was like, "Take me over there. I'm going to sign up too." And so we went over that day. Sure enough, I went over that day. Yeah, just like that, man. Maybe in my soul, I was looking for something I wanted to do different. I definitely was,
Yeah.
I was just hanging out with the wrong people. But so I went over there and talked to the recruiter. His name is Reginald. Real cool guy. He was over on El Segundo Boulevard. They used to have a recruiting station on El Segundo and I think Normandy. And signed up there. He showed me the job, and he's like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of want to do what he's doing." He's like, he showed me the two options between rescue swimmer and P3.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Well, it doesn't matter." He's like, "Man, you guys are a couple of beach kids." He's like, "You want to be jumping out of helicopters and swimming and stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds really cool, And
yeah.
So I pretty much signed the papers that day, and it was all guaranteed. I didn't do the buddy program with my friend, but we didn't actually do the official program, but we signed up at the same time, went to MEPS and everything at the same time, and basically followed each other the entire way through, which is really cool. And
That's
then
cool. You guys went to boot camp and SAR and everything together?
Boot camp, SAR, I got held up in boot camp for a couple of weeks because I didn't do the flight physical that was required. We had a medical PO, you don't really know what's going on. So totally. A lot of people went and got their physical, and I got the regular physical, not the flight physical. Mm-hmm. So they held me over for 2 weeks. So I was actually a class behind him after this happened. The boot camp together, and then he went in, and then I showed up like two weeks later in the class behind him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how from there, yeah. Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was no, it was really cool. So
How was
um,
summer school?
Star School was fun. I enjoyed it. The yelling at you, I kind of like that. It's kind of like kind of my sense of humor with some of the jokes they would make. I was like, these guys are pretty funny.
I'm
You get
sure they
me in
love that.
trouble because I'd smirk, and they'd be like,
Yeah.
oh man. Um, the exercise stuff, the running, I hate running, but we had trained way before this. We used to do a beach run from Breakwall down to this Manhattan Beach Pier and back, which is 5 miles on the sand. We do that like 4 or 5 times a week. And then the swimming, especially with the fins, I bodyboarded my entire life. Having
Mhm.
fins was just natural for me,
Yeah.
and it's a learning curve if you don't know how to use the fins and kick from the hip. But
Mhm.
I could be out there all day with the fins. And then regular swimming, I wasn't the fastest at that, but I could get like a really good time. I was in the
Yeah.
top
And
top
rescue
couple.
swimmers, it's not about being fast, it's about being proficient and getting the job done.
Exactly. It's more the endurance, I would say.
Hmm.
And so for that, it was perfect. Star School was fun. I made it through the first time, and no problems. My biggest worry though was obviously, you're sitting in the locker room. They're doing all the final multis and all that, and you're just
Hmm.
you're just a group, and you don't know who's going next and stuff. And some people come and they say they failed, and some people come and say they passed. And so I'm like, well, what'd you do wrong? What'd you do wrong?
Yeah.
And I was so worried I wouldn't like swipe the neck or do something stupid like that,
Yeah.
where you just miss one thing, one critical error. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, because you got, they don't give you much latitude. You either
Mhm.
pass or fail, and if you miss the critical, you're out. They
Yeah.
might roll you if they like you, but it's not a guarantee. And then, like you said, you end up either P3 or picking something different. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. The fear of
so
so I guess what got you through it? There's such a high attrition rate,
you
just
you know you know yeah, for sure. I'll tell you, I noticed the attrition rate when I first got into boot camp because there was like 5 or 6 of us that were going to be star swimmers. And before we even got a boot camp, 4 of them failed out for medical reasons,
Mhm.
and it was just me and my friend that made it. And honestly, what got me through was I wasn't going to let this guy who just made it, go back home and say, "Oh, I did it, he didn't." Like,
Yeah.
that's really what got me through.
Hey, that whatever it
That
takes.
was
My
it.
my
You
best
know,
friend through high school, he went in like a year or so after me. Same thing.
yeah.
He just saw my smiling face in like the class pictures. He's like, on his worst day, he's like, "There's no way in hell I'm
not
ever
not
gonna
a
give
chance.
Brian that."
Yeah,
So,
not a chance. I'm not giving you that. Because we still hang out as my best friend to this day. He'd be still rubbing me for it. I'm like, no, man, not happening. So,
nice.
um,
So from there, you went where for your,
went
you know,
to North Island, HS10. Well,
okay.
actually, we went to SEER school. I went to SEER school before I got to HS10. So we
Hmm.
went to SEER school, which is on the same base. Went over there, did SEER school, a couple weeks there.
Yeah.
Got done with SEER school. Then I went over to HS10 at the frac about 2000, maybe June 2001. Yeah, about sometime around 2001, maybe February of 2001, we got to the frac. Did the frac at HS10. 9/11 happened while we were there. I was
Oh,
actually
wow.
doing I remember what I was doing. It was I was doing my AF5 flight, and they canceled. I didn't know what happened, but they canceled all the flights, and Master Chief Duggan, I believe. I believe it was Master Chief Duggan. I think it was his name. Anyway, they formed us all outside, talked to us. We were all watching it, obviously, from the aircrew barracks on the TV, but we
Hmm.
had no idea what was going on. So
No.
uh, we were like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then we saw I was standing there with a bunch of my classmates, and we watched the second plane fly in. Then we were like, "Whoa!" And then they got us all mustered out there,
Yeah.
right away, and did that, and then did the flights and stuff, and then from HS10, I got my pick between either HS6 or HS5. I picked HS5 because my buddy went to HS7, and I wanted to go where he was going,
Hmm.
but and they were also going on deployment right away, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get out there and just go out,
Yeah.
which might have been a bad idea, maybe a good idea, a workup cycle would give you more
Never know.
flexibility,
Yeah.
a little more like training, and you could do some of the better flights. But you don't know. I just wanted to get out there and deploy right away. It was the beginning. 9/11 just happened, and they were talking about, one of the first bombing campaigns for Afghanistan that we'd be supporting. And I was like, let's get out there and do this.
Yeah.
And so flew out there, did that. Got out to HF5. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a car. Unfortunately, so you're kind of stuck to the base. You're kind of stuck a little bit.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, where everybody's walking around knowing what they're doing and packing.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm just standing there like, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do? So pretty much just loaded cruise boxes onto the carrier. I don't even think I made. I don't even know if I got one. I don't even know if I got one or two flights in. We were out. We were supposed to be out a lot sooner, but the JFK had some problems, so it was held up for some maintenance issues. I think they fired the captain and a bunch of the senior leadership and replaced them all with a CAG. And then finally, though, we get on the ship, out of Mayport, and took off from there, and sailed across over the Atlantic, made it through to the Straits of Gibraltar, came through the Med, did a port. I don't know if we did a port visit first. We might have done a port visit in Crete. Yeah, we did one port visit in Crete for loading. I think they were just unloading some stuff, got out for a couple days. And then we were doing some flight operations off of there. And that's actually where I kind of got my first, it's not really a rescue, it's more like a recovery.
Yeah.
And one of my friends from the squadron, senior guy, got rescued the Rio. But what happened was, it was one of those sunny days, right? In the daytime, the afternoon, whatever, you're not really thinking of much, just talking to my senior crewman. And, about like all the operations, like how the hoist works and all he's just questioning me, going through all the stuff about the aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden we hear over the radio, eject, eject. And I look at him and his eyes got real big and he looked at me and he's like, I'm already dressed out, right? We're already dressed out in a spring suit, wetsuit.
Mm-hmm.
We flew dressed out all the time. So I was already dressed out. He just told me, grab your fins. He grabbed, and we sat down. And, when we looked out, we flew up on it, you could see the aircraft carrier was making a hard. So what happened was the F-14 went to take off, and it ripped the nose gear off. So the plane just kind of slid off the side.
Wow.
And when that happened, obviously not enough speed to take off and fly. And so when that happened, the aircraft came sideways. And, when they ejected, first the Rio ejects and then the pilot ejects. And unfortunately, when the pilot ejected, I didn't see it, but he must have ejected, horizontally. And,
skipped across the water.
Probably hit the water pretty hard.
Yeah.
So we flew around, we saw the aircraft in the water. We saw the Rio, he was swimming and waving his hands. He looked okay. So they had me drop off. They dropped me off to 10 and 10. Pretty much really close to the aircraft. It was really close to the thing. Jumped in 10 and 10, jumped in, swam over to the pilot who was kind of non-responsive. Thinking back now, he was probably already passed away. I tried to feel for a pulse. I couldn't really feel anything. He was there. His helmet was kind of cracked. Some of the parts of the plane were there. There was some oil in the water. You just kind of have to push this stuff away and get away from it. I swam him out of that area. That's kind of, I guess, the debris field. I swam him maybe 15, 20 yards out of all that stuff because there's oxygen. There's oxygen bottles. There's all sorts of stuff floating around. The tail boom. The tail was up horizontal, just laying there. And so, I didn't want to get all wrapped up in this stuff. So I kind of swam him about 20 yards and called for the litter. The senior crewman lowered the litter down to me, go the trail line, drop the trail line. I bring the litter to me. And then I worked on getting him in it, which is tough. It was sea state, like 4, lots of stuff in the water. But I got him in it. I inflated my SAR-1 and just kind of worked my way down. And I was getting him in it, strap here. And then when I got down to his first leg strap, I noticed that the trail line was kind of tangled around his right leg. And it was kind of looped around it. But it was weird in the fact that it was only, about this big, right? About the size of a quarter. And what I realized his leg was actually kind of almost amputated at the both of his legs actually, which I didn't notice too much on my initial sweep, but his legs were actually amputated right below the knee on both sides, probably from the seat. And I was like, oh man. So I had to undo the trail lines from the where it was clipped into the trail, the litter, and I unwrapped it. It was around twice. I unwrapped it and then rehooked it up, and then I finished cinching him down into the litter. By this time, I was all done. We got it done. I signaled for them to recover, to come by and get it, and I was kind of like, the helicopter was was backed off now, and I'm like, hey, we're ready, let's go. And they backed off, and what I didn't realize was that there was already a ship, one of the rib boats was in the water from the USS Sullivan. So they decided just to let them come over and grab me and him, which they did, because they got medics. I think the Master Chief was a medic, the corpsman, head corpsman. And so we did that. We just bring up the litter into the rib, and then we transported it to the USS Sullivan from there. So, which is it's pretty wild because all the ships are right next to each other. You're really talking about maybe an acre, or a couple, maybe like 10 square acres. You got a carrier here, you got a ship here, plane here, you got my friend rescuing the other guy over there. It's all real close together, and you can really just see everything. I mean, there was everybody that was on the ship staring at me, and they were videoing it with the camera from up top, and I could see them, and it was a real surreal time, And
did you get any footage? Like, anyone ever share any of that?
I watched the footage from the thing, but I don't have it saved. No, it was back in those days, it was, you didn't get it on VHS, you didn't have it. So. But okay. I did see the footage. I did see the footage of the whole thing happen. Yeah, I did watch it. So
yeah,
that's seven or 8 minutes long. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole situation is just traumatic on so many levels. I mean, that's surreal. Just you're so new, for one. You're fresh to the squadron. You're out there, having a fun day of whatever, with your crewmen and you're launching.
Yeah.
That's wild. So when did they jump a surface swimmer in, or were you able just to?
No, we just I just picked the litter up and stuck it, and then they pulled it in.
Yeah.
No, I think there was a surface swimmer in the boat, but they had a bunch of corpsmen. They had they had a doctor, a chief corpsman, and I think a rescue swimmer and two other people, the coxswain of the boat. There's probably we did. No, I just picked it up. I just grabbed the boat, I picked it up like that, stuck it up, and they dragged them on. So,
yeah. And that's a quick boat ride back. Were they able to pronounce him deceased? Like,
I did CPR, chest compressions, but yeah, they were like, the Master Chief was like, no, we'll just, yeah. And then you could see it was tough, I mean, it was, thinking in the moment, I was more shocked about his legs. I couldn't believe what happened with his legs. And then, when we got, it wasn't until maybe the next day that I was like, man, it's, I was told that, because you see these guys, right? I know this guy. He was a real big guy, right? So I know him. You walk down the P-ways, you go from squadron to squadron. The guy was like 6'3", 220, 240. And so you're like, oh, and his call sign was Basher. And you're like, oh, man. He's like, you always wave at people and say, hey, how are you doing, sir? Right? Like that kind of thing. Yeah. And so I had seen this guy. And I felt so bad because I'm sure he had a family. I did learn that he had a wife and 2 kids.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what a blessing for you to be able to recover his body and have that closure for them. But not everything's glory in our job by any means, and that's really something you carry with you forever.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. So yeah, it's but that taught me a lot. Like you can go from having the best day, you got to be on. You just got to switch on right away. You don't know. Eject in the microphone in the headset.
Yeah.
and then your day is completely different from what you were doing. So,
Yeah.
because you're not watching the carrier deck, you just hear it, and then you're like, whoa, you don't even know what happened. You just see the plane in the water. That's all you know. And then you're not on any ICS. You don't know what anybody's saying. And we tried to use the radio, but it didn't work. I guess they were trying to contact me on the radio or ask me how things were going,
Oh, like
whatever.
that PRC
Yeah,
125.
yeah, but I mean, you can't hear anything on
No,
it.
those things suck anyways. They just
Yeah,
they just electrocute you.
yeah, yeah. So,
So that's
so
that's a lot. That's heavy, and obviously it still impacts you today. Just something you carry with you forever. So how did you actually get back to the boat? Did the rib like drop you off, or the helo come and pick you up?
Hilo picked me up. Hilo picked me up. Yeah. Probably on the boat for maybe 30 minutes, and then they just landed on the DL like a DLQ, small deck landing, and just I got in it, and
Did
then
you
they transferred me back.
did you transfer Basher's body like the litter, or did they keep them on the?
No, they kept him on the Sullivans. Yeah. They bring him down into the medical facility on the Sullivans.
Yeah.
And did whatever they were going to do there. I think that they were like, there's not much we can do, so I think they kept him there. And then from there, I don't know what they obviously transported his body back to the States.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. I
and
mean, we
then
end up doing so many like burials at sea and, dumping ashes
yeah,
from but not in that case, that's like after the fact. People like that's
yeah,
their request. Wow. So thanks for sharing that. I know it was difficult. Um, but yeah, that's amazing story of just how you never know. Like
yeah.
you're so new, you're out there, and even if you get that call, man overboard, ejection, or like whatever you're getting called on, we never know. You're out there.
Yeah,
It's not until you're on site, on scene, and you're assessing the situation. And then even for you, you're in the water and didn't even know, we can't pronounce them dead. We don't know
yeah,
if they're just, passed out or whatever else. And yeah, that's crazy.
yeah. So you're just kind of doing everything you're trained to do or told to do.
So how was the rest of, because that's early on in that, was that a med crew?
Yeah.
I consider that a med.
No, that was we were just stopping in the med. I didn't get to do any of those med cruises. We went right to the Gulf after
Mm.
that. Went straight to the Gulf, and it started the bombing campaign in Afghanistan. So we've been in March, April of 2002. So you go on the mess decks, and they got all the bombs laid out, and they let me sign one. Right,
Nice.
you could put your name on them. They were doing, people were doing signatures and stuff. So you couldn't really eat on the mess decks; they had a little space. But from there, it was just support for the F-14s, the F-18s were just doing the bombing. We were just flying I was just flying the plane guard
Mm.
for that. We did have a couple of senior crewmen do some prisoner transfers out of Pakistan and stuff, but I
Mm.
wasn't. I was a new guy. I wasn't involved in any of that. So get to
Yeah,
talk
you
to him.
probably didn't have CSAR training or anything at that point.
No, no, I was. Yeah, I was in there for probably 3 months.
So then you got back and you did have a deployment where you were doing more of that stuff.
Yeah, so we did. So we got back. We did. Got back in late of 2002, and then we started our workup for the next deployment, and then we deployed again in January of 2004. This time we went to Iraq. Did a deployment out to the Persian Gulf in support of that operation. I think Fallujah was just starting to kick off. So we're just mainly flying plane guard and force protection for that. And then sometime in April, well, they have these. So I don't know if you've ever been to where Iraq, Iran, and then the two oil terminals there, like right where the ship meets the shore. They had these two oil terminals there, and they had a Coast Guard Coast Guard boat that would patrol around, just kind of doing force protection over there. Looking for people
Mhm.
smuggling or terrorists and stuff. And one of the rib boats that they were using to board another ship, one of the dhows exploded and took out three people, wounded three. And I wasn't on the flight that went over to medevac them. There was a different set of crewmen that went over there. and they actually helped out with, I think it was a Swiss. I think the Swiss were already on scene helping out. So they went over there to help out and do some force protection for that kind of 24-hour period. They were flying for a while. I think they had to refuel a bunch of places. They dropped some injured people off, kind of a medevac type thing.
Yeah.
They were gone for a while. They came back. And story I think I wrote down, but the Coast Guard member who passed away in that explosion, Bruckenwald. A future friend of mine, received his body in San Pedro, California, when they flew him back, and he received it. And I was kind of like, I was just talking to him about how that I was there when that happened. He's like, hey, I received this guy's body. I met he met his wife and stuff. I was like, wow, that's a kind of a weird connection.
Just small world of it. So it's such a small, connected unit too. It's like,
yeah, small, tiny world,
Yeah.
And then, so from there, after that happened, we got forward deployed to a different, smaller ship, the Whidbey Island. I learned what the difference between an aircraft carrier and a small deck ship was. Right?
Yeah.
Totally
How's that?
night and day. Well, we came into land and the CO was hitting golf balls on the flight deck.
Oh, nice.
I got another story I'll tell you later. It's real funny what we had to do to eat. So we flew in a bunch of security people, master at arms and stuff off the carrier. We flew probably, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 people. And then they manned up on these two oil terminals out there, the AOT and the KOT, the ABOT and KOT. And then they just did force protection, have more of a presence to prevent any more kind of stuff like that. And then when we got forward deployed to Whidbey Island, we had SEAL Team 2 with us. And then later on, a recon team. We would just do reconnaissance. We kind of just fly from ship to Basra International Airport to these palaces, just kind of doing some reconnaissance, kind of a show of force, and just pack transfer type stuff.
Yeah. Was it Marine Recon or Navy?
It was a Marine Recon. So when SEAL Team 2 was with us, they ended up leaving. I think maybe they got deployed out onto the actual on land, and then they replaced them with a Marine Recon team.
Okay.
And then from there, we just did some patrolling. Nothing really happened for me for that one. It was pretty mellow. We it was really fun. Flying low level over Iraq. We did have almost one where we almost did crash once. I was a little nervous, but a low rotor drop while we were turning too much, and lost some speed and some elevation, and we were only about 150 feet off, and so
Yep.
but we pulled out of that.
Who was your senior chief?
Senior Chief Giannini. We had a couple. So Chief Betts, Senior Chief Giannini, Troy Rankin. On this one, we had Bodenbender. I don't know if you know Chief Bodenbender.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering if Shropshire was part of that one.
He was at HS 15.
15, okay.
15, yeah. He used to come into our. He used to come into our shop.
Okay.
So I know who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, we went through SAR school together.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
So you got back, and then what happened?
So I got back, and I had about 7 months left on my enlistment, and my chief was like, "Hey, it's time to re-enlist," and I was like, "I don't know." At the time, and I regret a lot of decisions I made. A lot of the immaturity I was when I was in the Navy, right? And this is one of the decisions I wish I wouldn't have done.
Whether you were in or not, you would have still been immature.
I would have done it no matter what. I did it even after I got out. And I wish I would have stayed in, right? But I had talked to this guy, and he was telling me about, I wish I would have stayed in because, later on I got sick and I didn't have any backbone for that. I didn't have any back support. So I had about 6 or 7 months left in. I ended up transitioning. I got out, but I always told myself I'm not going to get out fully, right? So I came back to San Diego, or came back to Los Angeles, Hermosa Beach, because what was on my mind is all I wanted to do was go out and party with my friends and go surfing go bodyboarding all day, right? That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to travel up and down the coast and paddle out. Unfortunately, I was met with the rude awakening that a lot of my friends were burnouts. And coming from a position from the Navy where everybody's doing something and working hard towards goals, I come home and I'm like, man, you guys are all just like, what is this? I don't want a part of this. And I was like, man, so I really had a limited friend group, that I wanted to spend time with.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting into the reserves, and originally I went down to the ASMOD down at North Island, next to the old S3 Shamrocks building.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
this little hut. I don't even know what you call it.
Was that a
Um,
41?
I think it was 41. Yeah, I think so. I think it was
Yeah.
41.
Nice.
There was like a little like Quonset hut next door that we would work as the ASMOD. And there I got to see what life was like as a P3 AW and even some old S3 AW, And I go in there and I was talking to guys, and one of them, he was a federal police officer. I wish I would remember this guy's name. I think it was Eugene, but he's like, this is where old AWs come to die. And some of these guys had been in for 30 years, and I was like, wow, okay. And so, I did my thing there, but I didn't know anything, right? I didn't know. They showed me how to run the tapes. They showed me how to use the equipment, but I didn't know anything. I was kind of like, what am I doing here? I mean, ASW was at this point, my time, a real subset of what we really do
Yeah.
in the Navy. But I did make first class, first up. Me and I don't know if you know this guy. Me and my friend Davis Jarvis, who was over at HCS 5, that special operations squadron that was next door. We both made first class, so I was kind of excited for that. Right, finally made it. I'm down there, San Diego, first class,
Yeah, big time.
and I was excited. And at the time, I made so after the ASMOD, I left the ASMOD because I was like, I want to go back to fly, and I had ran into this girl who was at the squadron previously and said, "You just walk over." I didn't know how it worked. She's like, "Just walk in there and tell them you want to transfer." So I was like, "That's all you got to do?" They're like, "Yeah." So that's what I did. I walked in there. And
Casey, it's not a complicated process.
I know. Exactly. I'm thinking I got to like put in orders and all this. No, you're in the reserves. This is where I found out that the reserves, especially the active duty reservists, have the best job in the Navy. Because I just went over there. I took my NATOPS jacket and I was like, hey, I just want to transfer. And they're like, okay, muster next weekend. And then from there, it was pretty much like, if you want to, I would just call them and say, hey, I'm available next week, all week. And I could come down there and do it for a week. I could come down there. We go to San Clemente Island, and those would be like a week or maybe even 2 weeks. You'd be down there and you'd be basically just working there, and you could do it on a week-to-week basis. And I absolutely love that. I was flying in the H3, so I was getting PKS squalled on the H3, which was just a totally different animal. I can't believe it. And they were all trucked out. There was nothing in it. It was just a room, almost the size of my bedroom. And got to do that. Got to, they did the Bambi bucket. I got to work with the Bambi bucket, kind of training, doing firefighting out there on San Clemente Island. But the one big thing that they do out there, obviously the reason why they're out there, is torpedo recovery, where you just kind of snare a torpedo and then throw this pipe thing down, and you snare it, and then you short haul it over. And I was like, this is fantastic. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yep.
And I
And
was
those torpedoes are like pre-programmed. It's for ASW training, so that you're doing
correct.
dropping sonobuoys, sonar, and it's moving
No,
around.
yeah, it's these are submarines, maybe HS-10 or one of the HS squadrons. It's just an underwater weapons range. Like the same thing as AUTEC, which I'm familiar with. AUTEC, that's where we train back in the Bahamas. And then they're not live torpedoes, obviously. And so you just pick them up and drop. I think there was actually a story recently where they found some of the torpedoes, or no, some of the smokes, and they were like, "What is this?" And it's the smoke we just tossed out. They're probably all over the place.
Oh yeah.
I think it was on the news, but so we were out there, and I mean, man, I was loving it. I had it all, right. And at the same time I was doing all this, I had went to a commercial diving school over here in San Pedro and Wilmington, and I was also working off the Gulf of Mexico for a company out near Lafayette, New Iberia, right, called CalDive. And so I was doing both of these things. I couldn't believe how nice I had it, right? When you're on the ship, when I'm on the ship working out there, for 2 weeks to 3 weeks at a time, because you go out with a ship, you do a job, and then you come back, and then you can decide whether you want to go back to work or not. I do both jobs. I was kind of coming back and forth, just it's just a man of travel, right? And I got to do this for about maybe 8 months, and it's fantastic the way I had it set up. And like all things, when they're going good in my life, there's a time where all of a sudden, I get taken from me, and unfortunately, one day when I was out on the ship out in the Gulf of Mexico, I got this infection on my toe, and so they had to take me off the ship. I couldn't work, obviously, and so they treated that, and then you have to get a physical to go back, right? You got to get dive physical, just like you got to get a flight physical. So they and on the physical back, they found that I had type 1 diabetes, and from there my world just shut down. It was like terrible.
Yeah.
I couldn't be in the Navy. I couldn't be in the Navy anymore. I couldn't even do paperwork in the Navy, really, because I wasn't deployable.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't do the diving job. They offered me to work there, like in the office, but I'm like, I'm not living in New Iberia, Louisiana. Like I can't do this. I came here to do this job the way and so I had to leave both. And unfortunately, everything I was doing required me to pass the physical for me to be healthy. I didn't have a formal education. I didn't have a bachelor's degree. I didn't have any of that. I had an EMT license, right? But at the time, probably still now, they don't get paid nothing. Maybe a couple more dollars than minimum wage. It was a stepping stone to become a firefighter, right? So I'm 27, 28 at this time with no real job prospects, no formal education. And I was like, I don't know what to do, and I spent about 4 or 5 years just doing stuff I shouldn't be doing, just not taking care of myself, not looking at what I should be doing, and just kind of living that punk rock lifestyle, like drinking, partying.
Yeah. With type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, it's bad, but I don't think I was depressed, but I was definitely angry, and I would see
anyone
people,
in that situation, I would think you'd be depressed.
Yeah, I was, I would look at photos of my friends on Facebook, or my friends would send me photos of them still deploying and doing their job, and I just get jealous. I'd be like, man, well, that was me, and I can't do any of that anymore.
Yep.
And I was just like, man, I was basically on a raft in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
But I did go to work as an EMT, working local ambulance company around here, and then also in LA. And I always had this healthcare stuff in my back pocket, right? So I was able to easily find a job. They're hard to get out here. They just don't pay well. And so I worked for a local ambulance company out here in Torrance, Santa Monica area, doing 911 calls. And I kind of loved it. Even though you weren't getting paid well, I got to see a lot of cool, crazy, got really implement my skill set, and like one lady. There's a street down here. She was driving down in her car, probably texting. It was 2 a.m, and me and my partner were just sleeping in the back of the rig. And she crashed into a telephone pole and knocked over a fire hydrant. And her car was laying on its driver's side. And my partner heard it. Was like, "Hey, did you hear that loud boom?" And I was like, "No." But he gets out and he sees what's going on. And there's a geyser from a hydrant shooting water up. And it's grabbing onto the broken telephone pole, and the telephone pole is just, kind of like doing like a little like oscillating, from the wires, right? Every time it gets in the water, and we see the lady standing up with the window down, her head out the window. We're like, whoa, it's maybe 50 yards from us, And we called 911, and that was one of the first times, I guess rescues, I guess, doing my EMT stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so cool. She was fine. I think we put a Band-Aid on her, and her dad picked her up, So that was a good thing, There's no problems with that. Yeah, I mean, especially for what it could have been, because knocked the power lines down. We had to call the fire department. obviously the paramedics came out. They had to call DWP to shut the water off, or the Edison to turn the power off, and all of that. I'll shut the water off, everything. It was a big accident. So, but and then from there, just a bunch of other stuff around car accidents and stuff like that, and we really implement the EMT skills pretty well.
Yeah. So is that what you're doing currently?
No, currently I actually work as an EMT, right? Not paid well. Doing that job, you come in and talk to all the nurses, and I was always shocked by how much the nurses made and how plentiful the jobs were. So during this time, I went to nursing school, got my RN license, and now I worked at an ER in Whittier, a place in Whittier for a little bit, and then got a job over here at a local hospital in Torrance. And what I do now is home health care. So I visit people in their home.
Yeah.
And you talk about calm in the chaos. Walk into somebody's house in the middle of a crisis. Sometimes it's like an episode of
They're not bringing you in on a good day. Like
you're not there because you're not there because it's going well, right?
Yeah.
For the last 5 years, I was working strictly with like cancer patients who were they call it palliative care, where you're being treated for your cancer or some chronic disease like heart failure or COPD, but the treatment's not a cure. And so you're really kind of balancing the side effects of the treatment with your quality of life, And how much chemo can you take before you tap out, right?
Yeah.
And, work with these people through those problems. I mean, the wounds, the wound care, the pain management, the stuff you walk in on, the infections, all this kind of stuff, you see it. And especially when you're doing the home visits, you don't have anybody but yourself, You go in there, you got family members that are yelling at you, patients that don't want you there. And you got to come in there with a level mind, figure out what's the problem,
crowd
how
control.
do we fix it exactly, I mean, I could just think of, one time we had a guy, he had cancer, but he also had dementia. And the family, the daughter anyway, wasn't willing to accept that,
Yeah.
And he would come from San Diego, and he kept pulling his catheter out, right? Well, he had a Foley catheter because he couldn't urinate. He had prostate cancer. So his dementia, he would look at it and just pull it out, right? Because he doesn't know what's going on. And so after that happened, I put it back in. He's got dementia. I was like, I'm talking to him. I'm talking about him to you. He's sitting right here, but he's not interested or paying attention. I was like, he's not taking care of himself. I was like, I've only been here a week, but you have to. I was like, somebody has to be here all the time. And she got real mad and angry. Don't stay. I was like, okay, call it what you want, but somebody has to be here. That didn't happen. So he did it again, and he fell. Got some bad wounds on his arms and legs that we took care of, right? You don't have to go to the hospital for this. They just call we are the hospital. So you just call us, we'll come out there. And if it's not life-threatening, we'll do the wound care. We'll do the catheter stuff at the home, right? 24/7. And so we would do that. And the second time it happened, I told her, I was like, look, what I told you was going to happen happened again. I was like, he's not safe here. You got to agree with that. And she ended up driving up, I mean, I almost thought one time it was going to come. I thought she was going to start hitting me, because she was so angry. But, it's conversations like that, they don't train you for that.
Yeah.
The Navy trained me for that because it made me quick on my feet. You meet all sorts of different types of people. People are yelling at you, making fun of you, talking smack. A lot of the people are veterans, so you can connect on that way. But they don't train you in nursing school for any of that, right? Yeah. And so that really came into help. And there's like all sorts of situations. I have one more situation. This is probably where it's all about being in the right place at the right time, because I'm visiting this lady. She's getting she has Parkinson's, right? So she's bedbound, nonverbal, basically just awake, can look at you, but she can't verbalize, can't move. And her son takes very good care of her, right? And he wants everything done. He doesn't want he wants CPR. He wants all this, everything done. So usually when I pull up in front of somebody's house, I'll take some time, I'll just relax a little bit and I'll walk in. This time I just got out of my truck right away, pulled up front. I walked into the apartment complex. I knocked on the door. His dad had answered the door, and he was in a different. And I walk in the living room, and the bedroom's like in front of me, but he's in the bathroom over here, like washing his hands. And because I think he was changing her diaper, like cleaning her up. I think he was just getting new stuff together. But what he didn't realize what he did is that when he rolled her over, he rolled her on top of, like, face into a pillow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so she was basically smothered, for I don't know how long, a few minutes maybe. But I walk in there and I was like, whoa. And I roll her over and she's not breathing, no pulse. And I look at him and I'm like, CPR. He's like, yeah. So he dragged her down from the bed, dragged her right. And this is right as I walk in the door. This is like, boom, first thing. I don't even stop walking. Walking, I'm in the room, boom, CPR, and roll her over, bring her down to the bed. She has oxygen, but it wasn't on her. So I put the oxygen on her and I turned it all the way up. And I had him start to take her blood pressure just to give him something to do. While I had the 911 on the phone on the bed. And I did chest compressions for about 8 minutes before the paramedics arrived. And right before the paramedics arrived, she just spontaneously comes back. They call it a ROS, right? All of a sudden, her eyes open and she's breathing. And I was like, whoa. We sat her up, right? I'm sure she had some pain because I definitely cracked some ribs. But we sat her up right, got her sitting. I kind of kneeled behind her to hold her up, cranked the oxygen all the way up, and then just had him hold her hand to calm her down, right? I'd be like, what's going on here? Fire department comes in, and I'm sometimes you talk to the fire department guys, and I don't know what they're, I don't know what they're, sometimes some of them have weird, I'm telling them exactly what happened, and they just can't fathom it. And I'm like, look, I came in here, and she was smothered into a pillow on accident, right? Not purpose.
Imagine you walking in and someone's telling you that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm like, look, we got her breathing again. I was like, but she needs to go to the hospital. And they were like, well, I don't. And I'm like, take her. Like, no. This is not an option. You're taking her, right? And they ended up transporting her where she's. I talked to the son. This is one of the other things, in the job. I told the son what happened, right? I don't think the son at first realized it, and he cares about his mom a lot. So, but you have to tell him so this doesn't happen again. Yep. I couldn't just let it go without being unstead. Like, hey, when you roll her, you got to wash your mouth. You got to wash her face. You can't roll it into a pillow, and you can't roll her and leave her. Just like a newborn, right? You can't leave her. You got to be here. You got to roll her. You got to make sure she's breathing. You got to, and as his mom's leaving, because I'm like, if I don't do it now, when she comes back, he might do it again. It might happen again. He's not aware of what happened, And so he did that, and then he thanked me, and I was like, "Can we get one more?" It was just like right before Thanksgiving. I was like, you get one more Thanksgiving with your mom. You're so appreciative.
Okay, let's take your time. Deep breath.
And so, yeah, he was just real appreciative of it. Very great, good guy. Yeah. She's still kicking this day. No problem. That doesn't always happen when you do CPR. That's the only time that's ever happened out of the 30 times I've done it. Usually they're in the hospital with all sorts of problems. And you never get this.
That's amazing. Just think about it, like someone's watching over you, just your path. It's just amazing to sit here and listen to why you got in, the job you had, even the traumatic experiences you went through, the gap in your life when you were told you had type 1 diabetes. It's like everything that you had trained for and the life that you had, it just comes to a screeching halt. I think so many listeners, you get that news. People get that news, whatever that news is, and we can, fight or flight. And you had to kind of walk through it to deal with that. But now you're back in it, saving lives, right place, right time, just all these, just so far beyond like a normal EMT. I mean, having the experiences that you have and just the mindset, everything else, it's cool. I'm proud of you. Like, as far as you've come, I mean, it's awesome. I'm so glad that.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I really, I quit drinking when my daughter was born, never, I'm not I drink and I just get too rowdy. You can't do that when I'm 42 now, right? So
Oh,
43,
yeah,
and I got a newborn, so I want to be that person for my daughter. I want to make sure she doesn't make the same mistakes I made and takes advantage of her opportunities. I didn't take advantage of all the opportunities that the Navy would give you. They really, as far as the college and all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Could have
But
been
your
more.
path is, it just looks different, and you are very capable at
Yeah,
42 to raise your daughter in the way that she deserves in a crazy world that we live in. So it's everything kind of just aligns for a reason. I feel like
yeah,
our lives are mapped out, and we just kind of have to walk it out sometimes,
yeah,
learn things the hard way. But it just makes us stronger and allows, like, it doesn't so much, doesn't really matter about us so much. It's about the next generation, our kids. So
yeah,
you can break cycles and teach them what they deserve to be taught. I mean, they're still going to make their own mistakes. And there'll be lessons along the way, but
yeah.
you have quite a story, so you can be as vulnerable as you want. And I appreciate you being super vulnerable on this podcast, because I think a lot of people can learn a lot from you.
I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, sometimes, you're just, it's, you build a relationship with these people. It's not like you just see them one time,
Yeah, I know.
I've known this lady for a year. I've known the son for a year. Come a couple times a week, sometimes daily for IV antibiotics in the past. It's like you build up this relationship. They're giving you Christmas cards. It's almost like they're part of your family. That's the way the home health goes. The home health, the palliative care nursing, right? They bring you in. You're kind of their beacon of like, you're their person giving them the options, and you build this rapport, and it's tough when bad things happen to them.
It is. It's like the good and the bad, right? Like
Yeah,
it's good to have those relationships, but it's inevitable.
yeah,
You're
it is
you're
coming
not
one
there
day.
to have picnics with them. Like you're a caregiver, and yeah,
Yeah,
that's really tough. It takes a really special type of person. Like I don't think I could do that by any.
yeah.
But yeah, it takes its toll. Like, are there any systems in place, like as far as counseling or anything? Because that's a lot for you to.
They do. They do grief counseling, but I don't feel I need it. I'm pretty. I don't really feel
I would encourage you. I think
that, but
I've actually, my wife and I've taught, in fact, she's teaching it tonight, grief counseling. So
yeah,
she's a counselor. And I was the same, and it took me, it's stupid, but I don't know, years back, my cat died. And I thought, man, I cried way too much for this cat. Like, I don't think
yeah,
I love this cat this much. And then I'm like, maybe I need to, talk to someone. And it's been, just learning that it's okay not to be okay, because that's so much trauma, just layers of trauma that, especially in our job in the military. And now you
yeah,
are in this, a lot of people do get into, first responders, and they just layer it on. And then at some point, that does come out. So I don't know. I would encourage you to have the courage to do that, because it's very helpful, but you have to.
yeah. Maybe someday. I got my my family keeps me going. I'm busy, right? My wife, I got a newborn.
Yeah.
My daughter. I ride dirt bikes a lot. Like to keep my weapons training up all the time. I got these things that I do.
Yeah.
I work out a lot. But sometimes when you talk about this stuff, and it brings it back to like how close this lady was to dying.
Yeah.
If I would have took 5 more minutes, she wouldn't have made
I
it.
know. I know.
Even 30 seconds, right? Just to stop and talk to the dad. I just crazy sometimes the way these things. Because this is one story, but there's many of them like it. And you just shake your head like, man, life's all about being in the right place, the right time for me.
Sure
I
is.
just can't believe it.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's amazing. You want to pivot to something more uplifting?
sure.
Okay. So if you've listened to the pods, I always have the current and former rescue swimmers go through a
Yeah,
hypothetical scenario. So this should be fun, because it's going to put you back in the aircraft, back in that happy place, and you're going to affect a rescue. Okay.
yeah.
So the whole point is it's not right or wrong. It's just what's going through your mind when you get this call. And I'll read the scenario. Okay, the scenario is a cliffside rescue of a stranded base jumper. A base jumper miscalculates his jump and is left hanging by his parachute on a sheer 500-foot cliff face. They're launching. Casey, you're the swimmer.
All
What's
right, I'm
what's
on
going through
it,
your mind?
man. I'm worried about the wind. Obviously, worried about the temperature and the altitude that we're already at. If it's 500 feet, if he's caught on the parachute, it depends on how. Obviously, if you could hoist somebody down,
That's you.
to do that. I would definitely do the hoist if the pilots felt comfortable and there wasn't a lot of wind and updrafts. As long as we wouldn't get interfere with the guy, scare him, or he's a base jumper, so he's pretty confident. He could probably just throw a rope down and he'd climb it up, right? Usually these guys are pretty athletic.
Maybe it was
But
his first time ever jumping.
that's true. That's true. That's true. But I would definitely look to do the hoist. If we can't do that, then it's time to think about calling the fire department, and they use the hoist, the winch from the front, and
Hmm.
you can get them through a big long rope. Although they repel now, so I guess if I had rappelling
Yeah,
experience, I'd do the rappel
there you
for sure. Definitely, definitely. It would, depend on how high up he is, or if he's closer to the bottom or closer to the top.
go. Right.
And
No, that's awesome. And that's exactly it. I mean, you've been out for how long now? Lots of years.
oh yeah, 20 or 18 years.
Yeah, it's almost 2 decades, and you're able to one. Well, you still work in the field, and you have, but not from the helicopter. But you're able to just go right back to it. And it's not even so much. There's so many different options you don't know until you get on scene, and you realize, okay, it's 500 feet up, 500 feet down. So some of those options aren't going to work. But yeah, getting a direct hoist down and disconnecting, the chute and everything, and put them in the strop. Who knows? But the
Yeah,
fact that your mind is just like spinning of here's all the possibilities. When you're hovering over on scene, then you're like, okay, I can narrow it down. Let's deploy. Let's get this guy.
yeah, pretty much.
That's fun. Love it. Well, Casey, thank you so much for just your stories, your just being you. The history of just the evolution of Casey Clark is so cool. But with all of that, man, you've learned so much. Like you have so much just experience and wisdom that most our listeners, a lot of even the rescue swimmers, won't even have. What type of wisdom would you give the listeners, even your daughter, 20 years from now? What kind of wisdom would you provide?
Take advantage of all your opportunities. If it sounds stupid, don't do it. Right. One of the biggest things is just to know that everybody's watching all the time, and you don't realize this until you're older when people are like, "I'm doing this job because you helped me out one day." Right? Like my friend's daughter became a nurse because I fixed this guy's dislocated finger. And when she crashed her dirt bike, I got her knee I got her knee stabilized, got her to the hospital. And she's like, I joined because of that. I didn't even know she was like looking, but people are
Yeah,
looking at what you're doing all the time. And
yeah.
so make sure you're just doing the right thing.
That is such, man, if everyone could just listen to that. I mean, think about it. People that are strong in their faith, they're, God's always watching type thing. But just in general, the people on earth are watching.
Yeah,
And you're right. And especially when you have a kid, they're watching.
they're watching,
When they
right?
repeat things that you did and you're like, oh gosh, don't do that. Where'd you learn that?
Right, right. Like I helped. We were out going. I got my daughter a dirt bike, and we were out taking her dirt bike riding in the desert out here, and there was we got a lot of schizophrenic homeless ladies and stuff, and we're in the middle of the desert. It's cold, and she's just laying in the middle of the street, right? And nobody's really doing much. Um, my daughter saw that. I'll go over there and I helped her out. I went over there and I said, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? Can I help you?" And she was fine physically, but obviously mentally a little unstable, probably going through some episode. And so I walked her up and I bring her over out of the wind. It was real cold and windy. I got her a cup of coffee, and then the cops showed up and paramedics and helped her out. But my daughter still talks about that to this day. And that was 6 months ago. She's like, "Oh, like that lady you helped." You know, so if they're watching, you got to pay attention.
That's such a good example. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and I always say that. So our job in the military is the ultimate form of serving others. You are clearly doing that above and beyond, and others are watching. And that's, I can only hope everyone would love their neighbor. Everyone would serve others. You know, stop looking at ourselves. We could have so much, just a better life. Man, it's just it's simple stuff, maybe harder to do, but my gosh, do our little part.
Yeah, serious, you know. But that's it. You know, it took me a while to learn all this stuff.
Yeah, well, we're still learning, right? We're learning every day.
So
cool. Casey, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you and just.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. For everyone else, we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Calm in the Chaos podcast. Please subscribe to be notified of future episodes. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Until next time, get out there and make a difference so others may live.